So, for those of you who are not familiar with client success, we are a customer success management platform. I know so many of you know us for our wonderful thought leadership and our content, and we are so grateful to have you coming back all the time, but we are a software company. We provide a solution that helps customers manage from what we say from new to renew, that entire post-initial lifecycle management, everything from helping your customers onboard onto your solution, managing that partnership, helping them achieve their goals, understanding customer health, taking action through automations and lifecycle management, all the way through advocacy and renewal. So if you are a customer success team today, working on a spreadsheets, working on your CRM, looking for a better solution, please check us out. You can head over to Client Success, go request a demo. Of course, if you're interested in learning more, you can always reach out to me. Happy to have that conversation as well. Dave Blake, our CEO, would also love to have that conversation. So if you're interested in learning more, please check us out. Again, if you're using a different solution, it's not meeting your needs, we're happy to help there as well. So if you're on the market, please go explore Client Success. Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff. My elevator pitch is over. This is part of our customer success thought leader summer webinar series. I could not possibly fit another word in the title of this webinar series. But this series, what we're doing is we're featuring a new thought leader every single week. So somebody coming in with a new perspective, something new, interesting to share. We are trying to up level the customer success community. And so with us today, I've got my dear friend, my podcast host, Mickey Powell from Update AI. Hi, Mickey.
Hello, Christy.
This is 2 days in a row you and I get to spend some time together. How about that?
I know. It's really the best start to a week that one could hope for.
I thought it might be. So the privilege is all yours. The honor is all mine.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to not only chat with you, but everybody here, because I have been in customer success for 10 years. I actually started in SaaS as an SDR. It was really hard. I hated it. I'm never going to do it again. Call out to anybody who's done that job or does that job. But I got my first customer success job in 2014 before I even knew what that was. And long story short, fell in love with it, moved up from leadership to operations. And then I joined a company called Update AI, where I currently am co-founder, head of go-to-market. And we build assistance and intelligence tools for customer success managers. So if you're feeling stressed, you got back-to-back calls, you're just trying to keep your head above water and make it to your 1 hour admin block at the end of the day, we actually integrate with Zoom and use ChatGPT to not only save you time and effort taking notes, but we also surface insights, action items, product feedback, risks. We draft emails for you, and we get you ready for your next day of work. If you want to give us a try, it is completely free for our basic plan, and you can get a free trial of our pro plan. Just head over to update.ai to sign up today. And like I mentioned, you do got to use Zoom. That's it for that. I want to talk about ChatGPT, Christy. And that's actually all I really want to talk about.
I want you to talk about ChatGPT.
Yeah. And I'll just let you know, my wife doesn't really like to talk with me about it anymore, because that's like all I want to talk about.
Is that why you made me stay on today to be your friend?
That's right.
For this webinar?
That's right.
Yeah, I thought so.
That's correct. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to get started. And I just want to preface as I'm pulling this up, I'm going to give I actually did this webinar last week. So for anybody who happened to attend the success coaching webinar around process building, content building using ChatGPT, I'm doing mostly the same content. However, I am sprinkling in a few additional things you didn't catch. So please don't bounce. You are going to learn some new things, even if you happen to be there last week on Thursday. Plus, like, look at Christy. Like, you don't want to leave. You don't want to leave that face.
You're very kind, Mickey.
Yeah, I'm going to win with flattery. So additionally, I would love for people to drop questions in the Q&A. I'm happy to answer them during and throughout and at the end, and there will be time for that. So let's jump in, because we got a lot to cover. And this is not going to be like a 101 basics course on ChatGPT. So I apologize for those that are new, but you are going to see some demonstration, which will help you start to wrap your head around how to use this new thing. So we're going to talk a little bit about ChatGPT today. So what is this thing? What are the current limitations with generative AI? What is the risk reward for leveraging these current technologies, because there's a bunch of different areas that we can tackle them. And then how to use ChatGPT to build content and process, and how that is key to scaling customer success. Because I know doing more with less, digital success, that's all the new hotness. But I actually think that there's a new path here that has just been laid for us. And then what are frameworks and why they matter? And we'll talk a little bit about kind of an underlying approach that I think can help you get really stellar results when using ChatGPT. And then, of course, I'm going to do some live demonstrations. I'm going to actually show you what I think this tool can do to help you and your team and yourself. So first, let's play a little game. I'm going to throw a number up here, and you can all throw in the chat. What do you think this number is? What does it represent? Is it people? Is it words? Is it gallons of milk? I'm a whole milk kind of guy whenever I do consume milk. What about you, Christy?
I do not do whole milk. I don't even think I do animal milk. So we'll do oat, coconut, almond, any non-animal milk.
Fair enough. Are you vegetarian and I just didn't know it? Or vegan?
I am not vegetarian or vegan. I love meat. I just don't like dairy milk.
No, fair enough. So the answer is that this is the estimated annual number of words generated from customer success meetings.
Oh, interesting. Everyone just thought that was the number of calls or number of meetings.
Yeah, they're close. They're in the right direction. So this is using insights from LinkedIn's data as well as Update AI's data. And that is a lot of conversations, folks. And I've been a CSM and I know just how valuable those conversations are. So when we're talking about like doing more with less as a CS team, and we're having all these conversations, we need to keep this in mind, that that's a main thing we do, and we need to grow efficiently. And that unfortunately means we can't just continue to have more and more and more and more meetings. Your clients don't necessarily want that. There's more work that comes out of it. And there's only so many hours in a day. So ChatGPT today, the analogy I like to use as we start to think about how to scale and grow and use this tool, it's kind of like Plinko. Christy, did you ever watch The Price is Right?
Who didn't? I mean, this is like one of those things that was on anytime you were home from school sick. So
correct.
Yeah, it was like almost like forced television watching.
That's right. And for our international folks that maybe aren't familiar with The Price is Right, it's a game show, a bunch of different games. This particular game is called Plinko. And you drop this little puck down. You're trying to get it into the 10,000, but it bounces around and it could do different things. And that's important because that's kind of like how ChatGPT works today. You ask it something or you tell it something and it's trying to guess the answer, but you don't know exactly what's going to come out of that thing. It's going to be slightly different every single time you drop it down. And right now, kind of where we're at in this whole generative AI journey is right at that orange arrow. And on the left-hand side is like the really complex, highly capital and expertise intensive approach. Like, I'm going to build my own large language model from scratch. I don't know how to do that. There's not very many people that do. So that's not really available to you and me, Christy, or the folks on this call. As you go more into the right, that's where you start to get to more simple things that we can do to influence these foundational tools. And the term that gets thrown around a lot is prompt engineering. And that we're not going to get into prompt engineering specifically, but just to kind of set the table for everybody on the call, it's just, what are you asking? What are you saying? Like, what are all the different ways that you're instructing ChatGPT to get what you're looking for out of it? And that's where most of the tools and applications that exist today are focused is, okay, how do we ask the right question, the right prompt to this tool? If you're interested in learning more about that, I did put out an ebook. It's free. You can get it at chatgpt.update.ai. Doesn't cost anything. Please feel free to go download it, or you can watch the past webinars I've done on it. So we know we have this tool. We know we need to scale efficiently. We do need to consider some limitations. So I know this is, there's constantly questions coming up about what are these things? What can they do? What are the problems? And I wanted to lay out a couple of them because I think it's important for all of us to understand. The first is that these right now, they're a very manual tool. So like you got to log into ChatGPT. You have to know what to ask it. You have to continue to use it in different scenarios. That's a problem today. However, in the future, I think we're going to have it to be kind of like always on. So like it'll always be listening. It'll always be paying attention to what Christy's doing. It'll make intelligent recommendations based off of what it knows about Christy. And that's a little scary.
It is scary.
Don't get me
It's
wrong.
terrifying. Can you imagine?
I can't imagine. I actually think it would be great because it's like, Google, all those other companies, they already have all my data anyway. Like what's a little bit more? The next, of course, is expensive, right? ChatGPT is actually very, very cheap. If you want to deploy something custom, then it starts to become really expensive. Like if you want to build it into your product, but that's going to go down over time with more investment in infrastructure. And then, of course, there's the whole security question. Does Christy want her information in these large language models? There are tons of companies working on this. There's known solutions, and then there's experimental solutions, but this is a problem that's going to get solved. So if you're concerned about InfoSec, if you're concerned about privacy, just know that there's too much money to be made for those companies to not have solutions to that problem. So just, if you're too uncomfortable today, just wait, it's going to get better. And then, of course, there's the context. And this is something we're going to delve into. But like, does it know about customer success? Does it know about client success, for instance? Does it know about that client success doesn't believe in EBRs? They do core. And yeah, that's right. I'm pulling it from yesterday's podcast for those that
Mickey, you can't keep recycling your content.
I know, right? So does it know about our specific situation? Over time, more custom training will help with this. But for now, it is very broad and general, and it's still a very powerful tool. So I want you to keep all these limitations in mind as you're starting to build this mental model of how we can use this in customer success. So we have those things. And of course, we have all these factors to consider when we're deploying this tool, because it is a tool. So, hey, we want to use ChatGPT. We want to use it to help us scale our customer success or to make our team more efficient. You have to consider all these different factors. Because just like buying a new software tool, hiring somebody, there's variables that you have to consider to get the most out of whatever you're trying to do. I'm not going to delve into each one of these, but just to, again, trying to like set the framework for all of you. So there's a lot to consider, right? That's a lot, Christy. I think I just threw like 10 different variables at everybody all at once. And it can be overwhelming. So like, where do we start? What do we do? So I think we have to start by doing some sort of like risk reward. We have to think about where are we going to get the biggest bang for our buck, considering what we know about our CSMs, our company, our skills, our capabilities, the market, all of those things. And you need to start to break it down because that's just too big. That's too big to deal with in any logical, concrete way. So how do we start to break it down? So what I'm actually proposing is that you first break it down by internal and external, and then you look at the buckets within those. And I color coded this to kind of give you an idea of like, based off of my opinion, where we should focus and where we probably shouldn't focus when using ChatGPT. So like community systems, probably too risky / not mature enough from a product like perspective. So let's stay away from those for now. The product itself, I'm not a software engineer. I can kind of consult, internally around what I think we can do, but like that's still kind of out of my wheelhouse. But when it comes to enablement for the team and for customers or management for the team, operations from an internal perspective, I actually think that these are some of the best opportunities. Marketing support, yes, but the reason why I focus on internal is if we mess it up, it's not going to hit a customer and it's not going to lead to a really bad scenario. So it makes it safer to test. So first thing, risk reward, start to drill down, but we got to go even further because it's still too big, right? Like, Christy, what does enablement mean? You probably have a very long answer, right?
Yeah. I was gonna say there's too much there to actually package that into just one word.
Yeah, exactly. It's still very, very broad. So you gotta continue to go down because ChatGPT is very general purpose. That's a feature and a bug. So let's drill down. So let's talk about like operations. That's a big broad bucket. There's lots of things. Okay, what about communication within operations? Like what we're saying, who we're saying it to, when we're saying it. And then maybe there's something around product optimization. We want to communicate how to optimize the use of our product at certain points in time for certain people. And we need to come up with a template to do that. So now we've gone from this big, broad bucket down to we need to do this template because it's going to help people, optimize the value of our product. Then you can just ask yourself, okay, what prompt will work for this? What is going to be the right way to approach this? So this is kind of the framework for drilling down from something big and ambiguous down to something way more tactical, tangible that you can get your hands on. And I actually, if you just give me 2 seconds, I'm actually going to show you folks what I mean by that. Sorry, let me move the Zoom thing out of the way because it's blocking. Sorry, I have to copy and paste. Christy, tell me a funny joke while I'm pulling this up.
I have no funny jokes teed up.
Oh, come on. Use ChatGPT.
No, last time I did that, the jokes weren't that funny. So I think ChatGPT can optimize its humor category. I did not find the jokes. Actually, it's really good for dad jokes. So if you're looking for really great dad jokes, it's we're good there. Okay, Ryan gave us a joke, so I'll read it out loud. I'm not going to take credit for this. What did the fish say when he hit a wall?
What?
Damn.
I love
And the
it.
fact that other people replied with the answer before I said it. See, there we go. Yeah, see, these are good. These are high caliber dad jokes.
I love it. So talking about like product optimization and a template. So I threw this prompt into ChatGPT. So I said, hey, you're a strategic CSM at Salesforce. And you could change this, right? You could say client success. Now, it knows a lot more about Salesforce than it does client success. Nothing against client success.
Salesforce happens to be slightly larger than us. Just a tad, though. Just a little. We're like right behind them.
That's right. Neck and neck, baby. So put together a product optimization strategy to help your client, who's a senior director of business application, maximize their product use. And then I gave it some constraints. I said, hey, don't upsell. This isn't about upselling. Make it an action plan that's proactive. Use the pyramid principle. This is a framework for those that aren't familiar. It comes from McKinsey, from a woman by the name of Barbara Minto. It's just a good way of conveying like strategic recommendations. And then I gave it some instructions on how to output. Like, what do I want this thing to look like? And this is what I came up with. So we have the optimization strategy. We have an intro. We have an overview with the situation, the complication, the question. We have recommendations with action steps. We have training and capacity building with action steps, process redesign, review and iteration, and conclusion. So this all looks fancy. So let's kind of break this down, Christy. Number one, we could give more context around who this is, their customer, when they're at their life cycle, all that good stuff, and it'll only be better. But the important thing here is we're leveraging very commonly used approaches, action plans, proactive, pyramid principle. These are intelligent approaches to this problem of, hey, we want to optimize this product. We want to make suggestions. We want to make it clear for them to understand. So you as a CSM or a CS leader, if you're trying to build a template or a framework or a process for that whole thing, you can get to an 80, 85, 90% done template in 5 minutes. Yes, you might need to make some tweaks, but if you're a leader or a CSM, saving the 55 minutes of like drafting this out is huge.
Well, Mickey, that's a big challenge, right? For so many folks, like starting with a blank sheet of paper is so daunting and so overwhelming that if there are folks who haven't done this before, it's like, where do I start? So
Mm,
having this output, not only is it like that saving that time, but it's giving you the proper way to structure something that might be new to you.
yeah. I love that you called out the getting started, because this was one of the first things that sold me on like, this is the future, was like the blank page problem.
And that's
I'm a,
real. Like that's a real problem so many of us professionals are faced with.
yeah. So like I'm a chronic procrastinator, and through, introspection and therapy, I've realized that it's an emotional regulation issue. Cause like, if I'm trying to tackle something and I don't know where to start, then I start to spiral into like, maybe I'm not that smart. If I can't figure this out, like, and then it spirals into negative self-talk. So if anybody, throw your hand up if you've ever
Wow,
had negative
Mickey.
self-talk.
Oh man. Call me next time. I'll be there to pump you up and tell you how great and how smart you are.
Yes. So like, I want to give it just a little example. It's like, hey, I'm trying to come up with a webinar on communication tactics. I don't know where to start. You're a professional instructional designer. Ask me questions to help me get started. I found that this is like a really awesome approach for me if I'm really unsure where to start. It's like, hey, just ask me questions. I'm better at talking. So just like ask me questions and I can just break it down. Okay, so what's the primary objective? What am I trying to get out of it? Who's our target audience? And then I can kind of answer all these questions in line. So like I would literally have a chat back and forth with ChatGPT. And then at the end, I'm like, great, help me package this all together. Now that you've helped me answer all these questions, look back at our entire conversation and put it together into an outline for the webinar. It's like sitting down with a professional instructional designer and them like walking you through the process. You know how much professional instructional designers charge roughly?
Probably a lot less now that ChatGPT is available.
Well, yes, macro pressures aside, they can be anywhere from $50 an hour to $200 an hour. I have this available to me in an instant. I don't have to go find somebody, hire somebody for $20 a month. And you can do this for anything. Like it could be about math. It could be anything else. So this is a very, very powerful strategy for anybody. And I mean anybody. I read an article, the smartest person in the world by IQ uses ChatGPT to like offload administrative tasks.
Makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. So let's jump back to it. That was a little bit of a digression, but I think important. And
This was a good example.
Yeah, I think it is great because like we're always constantly being asked to do things in customer success that maybe we don't know how to do. And guess what? If you don't know how, this should be your first stop. And that's what I do whenever I'm like, oh man, I don't really know what to do, and I'm putting this off because I'm overwhelmed by the complexity of it. I go to ChatGPT, break it down. All right, we drill down into that, come up with this product optimization template. Now we have something a lot more tactical to solve this, particular problem. Unfortunately, that also means you're going to need to add product manager to your resume, because essentially you need to learn how to use ChatGPT, because you're testing, you're trying to figure out what works, you're trying to implement those things. So for those that are not cozy with product managers or software engineers or those types of folks in your org, maybe you need to chat with them a little bit, or chat with ChatGPT as a product manager and ask, like, how do I do agile development? How do I test and implement new ideas? Because that's essentially what you're doing. Hey, ChatGPT, I'm trying to get this output. What is the right prompt? What is the right approach to get to that output? So it looks kind of like that, right? Where to drill down and test. But I do want to call out, Christy, that like leaders or individuals who are in charge of these things, you still have to have a strategy.
Yes,
Like
that's for everything, right? Though, Mickey, we talk about
yeah.
this all the time. You can't just leap into something and expecting it to do something very specific without having a plan. And so having a strategy is definitely where you need to start. Because what are we doing here? What is the objective? What are we trying to work towards?
And I'm going to put that on the leaders on the call, that needs to be you setting the strategy. So it's like, hey, we need to be more operationally efficient. So let's do a bunch of testing in ChatGPT on how to be operationally efficient. All right. Now we have a clear strategy. We're constraining and we're focusing our time and effort and energy. So I just want to keep make sure you keep that in mind, because that, of course, ChatGPT is so wide, so broad. I use it for so many different things that without focus, you can kind of get lost down a rabbit hole. And sometimes that's fun. But if you're busy and tons of work, then you need to make sure that what you're getting out of it is useful. So we're at a crossroads, right, Christy, with the customer success. It started and grew in a very money rich environment, venture capital, and we've now experienced a tightening for the first time, real time. And unfortunately, I know a lot of folks that have had a really rough time. And by the way, I've been laid off several times, so I totally know how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to say that it'll completely pass, but it definitely still hurts a little bit. But things are better, and we just happen to be given access to probably the most important technological innovation in our lifetime so far. So I think that we need to start rethinking what customer success is, how we leverage customer success managers, what they do for organizations. And there's a lot of different ways. I'm going to focus on two. One of them is around content, and one of them is around process. And I'm going to break these down, what I mean by these. So for content, I really think there's 4 goals of content: is to educate, is to entertain folks, is to persuade them, get them to do something different, start doing something, stop doing something, or to inspire them. Hey, here's this story, take this scary leap with me, because otherwise you're going to experience pain, or you're going to lose something, or what have you. So that's the goal of content. And I don't know about you, Christy, but every single thing I've ever said to a customer, written, put in a document, is to do one of these 4 things. Otherwise, what's the point?
You're right, because we don't need to reply all to say thanks.
Yeah, exactly. I've definitely tried to get better at that, of I don't need to reply thanks to have the last thanks. Just, they can stop there.
Yeah. I would say that if your email or your content is not doing one of these 4, pause, think about what it is you're trying to do.
Exactly. So then it becomes a question of how do we scale that, right? Because CSMs can't just have more conversations or send more emails. That's, for the digital segment, sending more emails doesn't necessarily solve any problems. You have to figure out, is it doing one of these 4 things, and how do you scale it with all the factors we talked about earlier? And then, of course, there's the goal of process, which we want to build and launch processes faster, because we want to increase quality. We want to increase the speed at which we deliver on the outcomes of a process, whatever that process might be. And we want to decrease failure, which is kind of the whole purpose of process, right? It's hey, do it this way so we get it done faster and we don't mess it up, because we've seen this before. It's not the first time that we've done this thing. So there is a bunch of questions holding us back on both of these fronts, though. With content, it's what are we going to write? Who's it going to be for? When are we going to do it? And then for process, you have to analyze what's the problem? How are we going to solve it? Who's going to build that process? Is it a CS leader? Is it CS operations? And then we have to train the team on it, because we have to enable them and do all of those things. And there's just a ton to consider. And that's why it's a huge investment of time and effort today. But with ChatGPT, we can do a lot of these things much, much, much faster. So frameworks is kind of the lens we're going to view these 2 things through. Common frameworks we're all used to. It's to-do lists, or the 5 W's, or even budgets. There's thousands of them, but all you need to really think about is, hey, is there a common approach to this problem? Is there a common way to think about this thing? And even success plans, for instance, Christy, those are frameworks. It's just a way of thinking about how to look at success from a bunch of different metrics, measures, angles. So the solution to scaling CS, I think, is 2-part. Number 1, we have ChatGPT, which is super fast, and then frameworks adds the intelligence portion. because, ChatGPT can be dumb sometimes. It'll be generic, broad, not useful. So let's dive into using frameworks for process building, because I think this is one of the really important areas. And we're going to use a scenario for an executive sponsor change and building a process around that. Christy, what happens when an executive sponsor leaves a company?
It depends. Were they a champion or were they a detractor?
That's a great question.
Right.
That does matter. And would you want the team to engage with that customer, engage with the new executive, all those things?
Of course. First, we want to figure out who the new executive is. We have to have a plan. If there isn't a new one in place just yet, if one is being hired, how do we engage the team? How do we go up maybe a level higher in the meantime? But yes, there has to be a whole plan in place on how you navigate this. And of course, when that new executive is either identified in the organization or brought on board, what is the plan to now get them re-engaged, get them sold on the platform? So lots to do.
That's right. So Christy obviously is a pro, but for those of you that maybe need some help, I want you to pretend that Christy comes to me and I'm her CS operations person. She's like, I want you to build this process. And actually,
Mickey, I'm not so demanding and I'm not yelling. So let's.
This is you. Let's
make my tone a little bit nicer.
Sorry, Mickey, please, when you have a moment.
Thank you.
So for an executive sponsor change, we need the process. We need email assets like templates for the process. We need to make sure we have a meeting agenda and a common approach to working with that new executive. And then we need a training plan for the internal folks to teach the CSMs how to run this process. And I've done this before. It takes me like 16 hours to get that first draft done, like 2 full days of work. So I'm going to show you how to do it in ChatGPT in just a minute. And you can do this for other processes. So I want to be clear, like I'm using an executive sponsor change, but the frameworks, that's what's important, the underlying frameworks. I'm going to use ChatGPT 3.5. It's lower quality, but it's much faster. So I would highly suggest that if you're building this internally, that you do it within GPT-4. And if you don't currently subscribe to ChatGPT Plus, it is currently still the best option available, though my guess is in the next 6 to 12 months, we'll see other really amazing things. So what I'm doing to start is I'm kind of like setting, and I'm doing some more for you folks. I'm setting the context around SIPOC for Six Sigma. You don't need to memorize this, but SIPOC is a process optimization framework from Six Sigma. So if we're building a process, I'm using a process framework. And it stands for suppliers. It's like, who's going to provide us the inputs needed to run the process to produce an output for a customer? SIPOC. So now I'm like setting the context. I'm like getting ChatGPT in the right frame of mind, so to speak. Now I wanted to frame what an executive sponsor change is in the SaaS industry. And again, you could add more context for your situation. We're a MarTech company. We serve Series ABC. We work with directors of marketing. Like you can add more context to set the stage, but obviously I'm keeping this broad for us. So it gives me an answer, has all these different things. It gives actions. So we'll see how this matches up to you, Christy. Assessment of their new goals, educate the new sponsor, realign on metrics, maintain continuity and communication, proactive monitoring. That's the steps it came up with on its own. So now I've kind of set that context and I want it to actually build this process for me. Let's zoom down a little bit. And I'm telling it to use that framework to create a process for this. So now it's breaking down all the component parts. This is what we need, or these are who we're getting the inputs from. Here's the process and what we do. I like how it expanded it to 8 steps from 5. I would obviously verify all of this, always verify anything that comes out of ChatGPT, especially if it matters for legal, ethical, or safety reasons. And then, of course, gives this nice little conclusion. And I don't know about you, Christy, but if I was building this for CSMs, I would try to give them a nice little visual. So I'm going to put this in a spreadsheet. Here you go, CSM. When you receive this on day one, you're responsible. This is what you got to do. Notification from the HR. Yeah, maybe you'll get that notification. I doubt it, though. So I would probably change this. I would probably change this.
If it's 90% accurate, like that's pretty amazing.
That's right. So now we've got a visual on the process. You could put this into client success if you're building plays.
You can put it into your success cycles. If you were building this in client success, you can.
There you go. But we also need those email assets, right? So we need an email to introduce the CSM, because I don't know about you, anytime I can save CSMs not having to think of their own email templates, I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So now they got that email template, but we also need an internal notice. Got to let the folks know on, whether it's the AE or other team members. So now draft me an internal, letting me know what I'm doing. Make sure you call out the actions I'm taking as a token. So just like, hey, CSM, you need to fill in this section. Everything else is preset for you. Mm-hmm. And then, Christy, do you attend meetings without agendas?
Never.
Never, right?
I mean, not never. I don't want to. But my favorite thing to do is follow up with the person who just send the invite with no agenda and ask them for an agenda and a clear objective.
There you go. So we're going to give that to the CSM. Say, here you go. Here's the agenda. This is what you need to send over to the executive. I also want you to make sure we're covering capabilities, current objectives, goals, obstacles. Here's some discovery questions, examples that you could ask. And of course, ChatGPT is taking its time. It's thinking, it's cracking under the pressure of public demonstration.
Like that's never happened to you, Mickey.
Probably has. But I probably
blocked it out. Here we go. Look. It's happening, Mickey.
There we go. Must be a lot of people using it right now because it's slowed down quite a bit.
Probably from your webinar, everyone's now trying to replicate what you're doing here.
They're not paying attention to me?
No, they're blown away. That's the feedback I'm reading in the chat.
Oh, well, that's great. We're not done, folks. We got more.
But wait, there's more.
There's more. That's right. 3 equal payments of $19.99 shipping and handling. I do wish this would go faster, though.
It's very thorough. So
it is very thorough.
It's not giving you like 3 bullets as your agenda. This is giving you like what are we talking about? Like, how are we structuring this meeting?
Mm-hmm. Well, I did tell it. I said you can use 7 bullets.
Well, it said we want it to be better than that. We want to be better than your 7 bullets, Mickey.
There you go. So again, here's the agenda. It does go into detail. So, maybe you just send the top level, but got an error. There we go. Now it's faster. Just needed to stretch its legs. And obviously it's kind of hard to see. It definitely is a little different from just the last time it generated it. So now we have our agenda. Was this response better or worse? I'll say better. There you go, ChatGPT. And then we need a follow-up email from that meeting, right? We need a template for that. Probably have a good sense that like there's going to be things that we start doing, things that we stop doing, things that we keep doing. So we'll give that template for the CSM so they know, taking the notes from the meeting, providing it. And then the last part, and I'm not going to go super deep on this, but just to give you a sense, Christy, you got to train the team, right? They got to know how to do this thing.
They do now need to know how to do the thing.
So I'm going to ask ChatGPT to write a training plan for the process above. The framework I'm using is Webb's Depth of Knowledge. You can ChatGPT or Google that, but that is a framework for levels of knowledge. So like first level is I can just recall it, like memorization, all the way up to level 4, which is applying it in novel situations. So now we have our overview of the training plans to equip the CSMs. We need to make sure they understand We need to make sure they have a sense of the roles and responsibilities and clarification of what they're doing. We're going to clarify the metrics, the KPIs, data management, and then skills and concepts, techniques, relationship management, strategic alignment, problem solving, and decision making. So developing problem solving skills to address obstacles and challenges faced by the new sponsor. This, I will admit, is less quality than what I get out of GPT-4. So I would highly suggest you test this in GPT-4. But the general approach of like taking this whole thread and then repackaging it for a training plan, that's what I want you to take away, is you can narrow in on very specific things like generating an email, and then you can zoom back out and say, take all of this, package it into a training plan or a document or a standard operating procedure or what have you. I'm going to skip through a few slides because I actually want to do another demo. I think that's probably what people want to see. And then we'll have a few minutes for questions. But as you all saw, that took me less than 10 minutes. Probably like in GPT-4, when I test it, it's like 85% done. Like it would only need a few minor adjustments. Saves a ton of time. So I'm going to skip through all these so we can get to the next demo, because I think you guys are really going to like this. The preface for this demo is like, hey, customer success managers, everybody wants to know what you know. Marketing wants to know what you're hearing, case studies, success stories. Product wants to hear feedback, use cases. Other customers want to know, hey, how did they use it? How are they being successful? Have they experienced this challenge? There's a lot more cross-functional peers that need what you know, but just, kind of focusing. And I want to show you how we can generate content from QBRs or cores, whatever.
Thanks, Mickey.
You're welcome. What does core stand for again?
Customer Objective Review.
Customer Objective Review. This will work exactly the same. Doesn't matter what initialism that you use or acronym. So what I am going to do is I'm going to take a transcript from Update AI. This is of a real customer QBR. I have anonymized the data so that I'm not sharing Update AI's customers' data with all of you, and I did receive permission to use said underlying data.
Very good.
And then I'm going to throw it into ChatGPT with multiple prompts to generate content. So I am going to use GPT-4 for this one. So I'm going to hit start so that it gets working, and then I'm going to explain this. So this is all the transcript. And the vendor, like us, and the customer, we are Talent Scouts United. So you and me, Christy, we're Talent Scouts United. Mm-hmm. And we're doing a QBR for, I think it's Pinnacle Equity. Yeah, Pinnacle Equity. They're the customer. So this is all the notes. I summarized, kind of compressed it down, so it's not just a transcript, back and forth. Yep. And what I did is I told ChatGPT that it's a CSM and it's writing a follow-up report for this QBR using the pyramid principle. You guys probably saw I used that earlier, which is the whole, just a framework of delivering recommendations, supporting evidence. And I want you to write up a straightforward plan moving forward. Then I gave it a bunch of additional details like, hey, make sure it's actionable, make sure it's appropriate for an executive. For any action items or next steps, I want you to think through the immediate follow-up action. And then lastly, I want you to prioritize the list using Getting Things Done, which is a framework from the book Getting Things Done by David Allen. And then just give it some, hey, make it all nice for me. So I'm going to scroll down so we can start to look at this. So immediate actions for cross is we need to do this. Next steps, here's the due date. It's pulling all from the transcript. And then we need to enhance search functionality. So part of this product is around search and networks. We need to conduct a thorough review of the search function. We need to gather feedback from users to identify the pain points and areas for improvement. And we need to have that done by 9:15. And then there was a lot of talk around the deeper client relationship and an advisory board. So we need to identify suitable customers for the advisory board, and we need to have the first meeting by this date. So just kind of breaking it down, making it a much more actionable and easier to generate plan based off of the QBR. So when you do a core that's an hour long, how much additional work usually comes out of that? Like administrative work for CSM and other folks?
Oh my gosh, a ton. I would say at least 3, sometimes 4 or 5 hours, 3 to 5 hours.
So like writing up the plan and what we're doing and who owns it can now be condensed just using the transcript. And yes, again, validate, add context where needed, but this is a huge shortcut. But then let's say marketing, they're always asking for use cases, right? So now I'm telling ChatGPT to take on, come on, don't bail on me now. And saying, hey, you're an expert content marketer. I want you to take that same transcript and come up with a short case study. And then I give it a framework of the 5-act story structure, which is like the whole like rising action. Okay, everything's fine. And then I also tell it, if there's anything missing, I want you to call those out. Like, I don't want you to make stuff up, but I want you to let me know, hey, we need more around this or more around that. So we have an intro. Talent Scouts United embarked on a journey of transformation with an unwavering commitment to customer success. And then the challenge, the solution, unified talent, focus on relationships, and then technology innovation and the results. So I gave it a very simple prompt, but you could, Christy, for instance, add in, hey, here's our brand guidelines. So you can give it more like, and then just hand it straight over to the marketing team and say, hey, this is 90% of the way done. Here's the call in case you want to go look at that, add your own little flavor, post it on the blog, boom, good to go. And they're going to love you for it because they're like, oh, great, you just did most of my work for me. And then product. Talk about what product feedback was found. Is there anything that relates to additional training, to enhancements, strategic decisions, potential bugs? And then it starts to bucket them for me. Additional training. Hey, there wasn't anything specifically around that. Okay, cool. Enhancements, strategic decisions, potential bugs, none specifically mentioned. Great. So now we can package this up and give it to product and say, hey, we just talked with Pinnacle Equity. We did a core QBR. This is what came out of it. And then last, but definitely not least, based off of the plan from earlier, let's come up with an agenda for next time. We're going to meet again in 3, 4, 5 months. We already know what we need to cover based off of the plan. So we need to, go over the things that we talked about in design enhancements and search functionality, client advisory board. So you can send this ahead of time and say, don't miss that meeting because we already have all of these things that we need to follow up on. So you're starting to preempt that value around, this is what we decide is important. This is what we're working on. And here's the next chance for you to get to weigh in on, are we getting what we need? I'm going to stop there because we only have 5 minutes. I'm sure we have questions.
We do. I mean, I could watch you go through like a million of these examples and these exercises, Mickey. These are so powerful. And I hope that folks are just starting to scratch the surface of like what's possible here. I mean, to your point with the frameworks here, I think, there was a comment here, but like even just having a session on all these different types of frameworks, Mickey, maybe that's a webinar you come back for and we could talk through those, because how to use those and how to think about them, even what they are, right? Like not everyone is as smart as you, Mickey. We don't all know about all these cool frameworks that are available.
I want to just like dispel a myth. I'm not smarter than any of you. I've just invested way more time over the last 6 months.
Well, you also, you read a lot, you do a lot of research on this. So this is why you're my expert. And that's why I invited you on today. Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. Let's talk through a couple questions. Okay. Some of our questions are more comments. Okay. Okay, so someone was asking this, I guess, is specifically, remember when you used the example of Salesforce and saying like, how would you do
Product
this? Yep, the product one. Will this use case work for a software platform that's not highly known?
That's a great question. If there's specific context that is not highly like, ask yourself that question. Like, if I just walk down the street and I ask a random person about it, if they don't know, then ChatGPT is not likely to know. But you can add context. So like, Update AI, one of the main problems we solve is taking notes during your meetings. I can explain that simply to ChatGPT so that it has a framework of understanding notes are important, focusing on your customers are important, asking questions are important, saving time is important, and Update AI helps that with that. So you can break it down a little bit to give that additional context and then say, well, I need to come up with a training plan to onboard new users, keeping these 4 things in mind.
All right, very good. Let's see. Someone else was asking, any roadmap to integrate with Teams? I guess that was about Update AI though.
Long story short, yes, unfortunately it won't be soon. It'll probably be next year.
All right, let's see. Okay, another question here. Can you foresee that CSMs might all start sounding the same to customers with ChatGPT if we don't use it as a rough draft and make it more personal?
Yeah, of course. Like, ChatGPT is literally a statistical guess based off of what it's learned. So yeah, if you put no additional constraints or guidance or context, then yeah, it would all start to like go towards the mean, like the average midpoint. But the good news is there's so many factors we always have to consider that you likely won't. And my theory is this will unlock us to be even more specific and more helpful, because we can say, hey, I don't need to know how to like create a training plan from scratch. ChatGPT is going to help me with that. What I do know is that you need to know A, B, and C, and you need to know it right now to get where you want to go.
All right, very good. Let's see. We could probably do one more. For folks who are new to using ChatGPT, where would you recommend they go learn more about creating effective prompts to generate the best responses?
You can download the ebook that I wrote. In that ebook as well, on top of like bunch of practical customer success focused information, I also point you to the experts that I have learned from. There's many people out there much smarter than me when it comes to this stuff. I've tried my best to synthesize down for all of you. So head over to chatgpt.update.ai to download that ebook. And please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to answer questions.
All right, very good. Well, I think that we've made it through our questions and comments. I appreciate everyone's participation today. Great dialogue here. As we mentioned, this is recorded, so we will be sending this out. I've got a lot of folks already asking for the recording. Please bear with us. We do a little cleaning up of the content before we send it out. So we should have it out in a few days. But Mickey, thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge, your experience with us today. This has been super informative. I tell you, I took pages of notes here and I already have access to this and I've already heard you talk about this a ton of times. So I feel like every time I hear you, though, I learned something new, and hopefully that was our audience's takeaway as well. So just super grateful for you joining us today.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Christy. Thank you, everybody. Hope to see you around soon.
All right. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. We will see you next week. We've got Jonathan Corbin coming back as our next expert next Tuesday, same time, same place. He'll be doing a panel discussion with our CEO, Dave Blake. So I'm going to take a break next week, thankfully, from these webinars, and Dave will come and take my place with Jonathan Corbin. And then we've got a lot of great content scheduled for the rest of August. So keep coming back. Thank you so much for carving out, making us part of your day. Mickey, thank you so much again. We really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.